Welcome everybody to the Safello Show, episode number 19. I hope you're having some lunch if you're in Europe. We have a great show for you today. We're going to talk about our integration with Divly, but before that, let's have a look at Safello. So we did some cool stuff this week. The biggest thing, well, not depending on how you look at it, but one of the biggest things is we did the complete refresh of our brand. Kudos to our amazing team that we did a lot of the copy and the design. So have a look there, and if you scroll all the way down, here you can follow the crypto prices, of which we now support 5, and then all the way down you will also find our social media channels: Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Discord for communication, interaction with the management and with the rest of the team. And of course, if you have any support issues, go to customer service. Then one thing that we wanted to highlight is our donation page that we also launched recently to help Ukraine. We've seen tremendous support from people using the widget. We've seen a lot of different people, but also a good amount of actual money being sent to the Ukraine. This has been part of donations in general that we've been doing for a longer time as a company, all the way back to 2014, when we were working with 3 different charities. And you can read a little bit about that here. If you are looking to invest in Safello, you can find our investor page that also got a complete redo. You'll find the financial report, press releases, information on our corporate governance. And of course, you will find our latest news, which was the LOI that we entered into with Avanza. The stock did pretty well in response, but we're happy for. Then finally, of course, what happened this week, and that's what we're talking about here today. We launched our taxation page where we partnered up with Divly, and we have none other than Carl on the show today to talk through, crypto taxation, and then of course we're going to do a little bit of a demo on how the Divly integration works. So with that said, Carl, welcome to the Safello Show.
Thank you very much, Frank. Glad to be here.
How are you? It's been a busy week, I guess, with the taxation season coming up, and people wanted to do their taxes and trying to figure out what to do.
Oh yeah, it's definitely high season, so there's a lot of work to do. We're working very hard. It's tiring, but it's also very, very fun. I mean, this is what we've really prepared for, built for, and now it's happening. So we're just happy to be here in this season now.
Maybe we could start a little bit with the history of Divly, so people get a bit of a background on what Divly is and what your mission is.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I get personally, my background is very much in finance. I was working in different companies, hedge funds, and pension funds for a company called Facet, helping them with reading their portfolio data and doing analysis on that, and using risk models. So when I started with crypto a couple of years later, and I had to declare for the first time, I started realizing, well, wow, this is actually a huge pain. And I have a finance background, right? And even for myself, I was like, in Excel, like sitting there trying to understand all these tax rules, trying to get it right, and just realize, if I'm struggling, right, there's probably a lot of people struggling with this.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, I think I did my taxes on crypto first in 2018, so for profit to me in 2017. But then a couple of years later, I really sat down and said, how can we do this a lot better? And then we kind of, the idea of Divly came up, and we started working on that in January in 2021, actually. So just over a year ago.
That was also just before tax season, but I guess you didn't get out before the first tax season then. So this is your first.
No, we did actually. We worked so hard, right? Crazy hours for 2 months. We built an entire beta version, right? We called it a beta version. Just in time for tax season. I think we reached one day after it came out at tax season, and then we saw we got hundreds and hundreds of users. We had paying customers as well. So we realized, okay, wow, there's actually a huge demand for this stuff, and we're like, well, let's do this seriously. So we started. We after tax season, we basically rebuilt everything from scratch, made it more scalable and everything, and made it more modular for more countries as well.
Yeah. So maybe we can dive. So just to be clear, so your first tax declaration, did you say 2018? So that was right after the ICO.
Yeah. Right.
And I guess you took part of some ICOs and tried to figure out what. right.
I think Bitcoin went best. Yeah. So
Yeah. Okay.
should yeah.
Well, without giving tax advice as a disclaimer, which we don't, but maybe you can describe a little bit on like what taxation in this case in Sweden means and what people should think of and what it looks like today.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, like I'm not a professional tax lawyer. I do know a lot about taxes, obviously, because what I work with. But yeah, it's definitely not tax advice, but probably some good information I can give here. So essentially, I mean, crypto taxation really depends on the type of transactions you have had. And you can kind of look at it as it falls into three types of categories, the way we see it. So the first one is capital gains tax, which is the most common one. So that's when you're buying and selling and trading cryptocurrencies, or if you did an ICO. There's also a few other cases as well where capital gains tax applies. And that's taxed in a rate of 30% in Sweden.
Yeah.
The second one is income tax. So income tax, if you've been paid in crypto, if you've maybe been in referral programs, you might have to declare income tax. Or, for example, if you've been mining as well, mining is a form of income too. And the third is interest income tax, or räntinkomst in Swedish, which is really like if you have made interest in crypto. So if you maybe use some of the centralized like BlockFi, Nexo, Celsius, where you lend out crypto, and staking as well, absolutely.
Yeah.
So staking falls under the category of interest.
Okay. And are you guys able to handle all three of those?
Yes, we are definitely.
Okay.
So we've actually we can handle a lot of different transaction types. There are of course like complex ones that like you're talking about DAOs, you're talking about really complex things that we haven't automated at this point. So those we can't really handle that well.
Can you describe that complexity for people trying to see what like, because it's there's the landscape moves so quickly and things change constantly, and then of course the tax authorities are trying to keep up, and we've seen in the past, like looking all the way back from we started with David Hedquist, and we did a show about it with David Hedquist, where there was a VAT applied on the Bitcoin mining, which ultimately then went to the European Court of Justice, and then it was ruled against applying VAT. And we have also seen kind of interesting things around like the warnings around, I think, OneCoin and taxation around different aspects, if I recall correctly there. But what is the what are these complexities, and how can you describe them a little bit for like the simple part and the hard part, and the sort of the scale of how complex it gets, and if it's even possible, or how you see that evolution of being able to do some of these complex things as well, and maybe connected to that, I'm making the question long, how you see that interaction with Skatteverket in Sweden's case responding to that.
Yeah. Okay. Where to begin here?
Just trying to make it easy for you, Carl.
I don't know. Maybe should I start by like we can go through some easier cases. I'll explain that, but then we can go to some complex ones, and I can talk about the complexity of that as well.
Yeah.
And like as if you're doing crypto, right? So if you're just buying crypto, right, you don't pay taxes on that. You just hodl, you're fine. And there's nothing complex with that at all, and even actually when you start selling crypto, that is a taxable event, and that's when you just pay taxes on it. But that's also quite easy to automate too, because we can track how much you purchase it for, so your cost basis, or we call Sweden omkostnadsbelopp, and then we use that against the sale price to figure out what your profit was and what your capital gains tax is. So those are things that are pretty easy. I mean, if you're doing manually, it starts getting really hard when you're trading crypto to crypto already. So if you're, for example, you're trading Bitcoin for Ethereum, now you start having to look at, okay, wait, what was Ethereum, if you remember, received, what was that worth in crowns on the day you got it? So that's one step up from stocks in complexity, because you don't trade a stock for a stock.
Right.
So then you look at, for example, if you go like another layer up there, you start having you have those smart contracts essentially, right? What you're talking about, like the complexity, like okay, how do you define like these different kind of pay to win games and all these different things, and the DAOs where you're basically pooling your money together and you're doing complex transactions. And to be honest, like, you know, Scatterback and stuff, they do come out with regularly with like more updates on these different kind of rules and different transaction types. But it do happen often to come kind of after these things are happening. So the innovations definitely take place a lot long before Scatterback does do come out with some of these rulings, which makes it very hard to figure out and kind of apply tax laws to it, especially if you're just a normal individual without a tax lawyer.
So, and when it comes to Bitcoin to Ether trade, right? So you're saying in that case, you look at the value of the Bitcoin as if it were SEC, and you look at the value as of Ethereum as it is SEC, and then you basically calculate the capital gain on what you got on the original Bitcoin on that price, and then you compare that to the assets that you're buying for that, which is then the starting point for looking at later on when you sell that Ethereum again and the capital gain that you would make on that.
Yeah, exactly. So you say you buy 1 Bitcoin for 1,000 crowns, and then you trade 1 Bitcoin for 10 Ethereum. When you look at what was the 10 Ethereum worth from that 10 crowns, so it's also the receiving currency. And say if that Ethereum was worth 2,000 crowns, well, then you made a 1,000 crown profit on the Bitcoin. And then the Ethereum itself would also have a value of 2,000 if you were to sell it later on, that you look at.
Yeah. Exactly. And how does that work with losses? Maybe we can go into that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So losses, you can actually deduct 70% of your losses against your gains. So if you made in one trade, you made 1,000 crowns, and then in the next trade, you lost 1,000 crowns. When you can take 70% of that to 700 crowns, and so 1,000 minus 700 would be 300 crowns. So you would have made a 300 crowns profits. Which does kind of make it a bit, you know, is pretty harsh. I feel like compared to a lot of other countries where, you know, it's 100% deductible. So if you have, you know, done a lot of trades and you actually kind of ended up in minus net, so you had a net loss, you might still have to actually pay taxes, even though you made a net loss because of that.
Yeah. And I guess, I don't know if you are familiar with the case of Linus Dunker. I think he wrote a whole book about it. I haven't read the book, to be honest, but I understand he had that kind of issue around the mining where he was having, I think, to pay more taxes than he ever had made in money from the mining operation. Are you familiar with the case or no?
Familiar with the case, but not very, I don't know much about it at all, to be honest.
Okay.
I haven't looked too much into it. Yeah.
But maybe we can go into mining and how it works from a mining perspective on the taxation.
Sure, absolutely. So mining is considered as income. And so there is, first of all, you have to kind of look at, like, are you mining as a hobbyist or are you mining as a business? So you can go to Scatterback and you can see, like, hey, how would you classify your mining activities? And I mean, it's pretty relaxed, like, because I think it was made like a while ago. So it's like something like if you're doing it for a proper reason and you're mining like 25 Bitcoins or more per year, that's in the text at the moment, then it's a business. But if you're doing, you know, on a lot smaller scale, or you're using maybe your gaming computer on NiceHash to mine, right, then you're definitely in the hobbyist category.
So and you're saying that the bar there is 25 Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's on Scatterback's page right now. I mean, there's more like kind of like things like involved as well. So it's not just that, but I mean, that was also, you know, written like quite a while ago. So, you know,
that's an interesting figure. That's an interesting, you know, all right. And it's true, like that is part of the complexity, of course, right? If you started mining, and we see that all the time in our business, of course, people that are mining in 2013 or even earlier, then of course that this distorted picture of what it was at the time and versus how you now look at it from a text lens as well. But yeah, okay, interesting.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're a hobbyist, then I mean, you want to fill in what is called a T2 form, where you basically give the amount of mining income you had converted to Swedish crowns. And to do that, you would look at every single transaction that came into your wallets from mining. And you would convert that on a day when you receive it in SEK. I mean, you'd add all of these up during a year, and that would be your mining income. You can also deduct expenses when doing this as well, but you have to be very, I think, cautious with deducting expenses. Like, you can't say that your gaming computer is a mining equipment because it's used for other means as well. So that will not, you know, be allowed to be used as an expense.
But if it's a dedicated mining computer, then you would be able to do it.
Absolutely, then that's
Okay.
fine. And you also only have to declare if you make profit. If you made a loss, if your expenses are more than your gain, you don't have to declare that at all.
Now I forgot what I wanted to ask. Now about the complexity of sort of where do you see the issues arise, or in the conversations with your users that are miners? Are there any? Of course, we have that from a proof of funds perspective. Like, okay, how do you prove that you actually earned this amount of Bitcoin with that machine? And do you have any of those conversations with end users that are dealing with kind of these complexities of maybe they've mined and then they did staking, and like these sort of never-ending circles of any kind of early crypto adopter that and then how what kind of things do you see in from your user base?
Yeah. I mean, I think overall, like for most people, it's actually quite simple. You use something like Safello or Coinbase, and you've done basic transactions, and it's quite simple to do.
Yeah.
But definitely, I mean, in specifically mining, I think people are most annoyed about the taxes are very high. So you have to pay both egenavgifter, so like social contributions essentially, plus your income tax. So it does get quite expensive to pay mining income.
So what can you give a calculation example what that looks like?
So it's usually, I think, schablonavdrag is how it's calculated. So it's about 25% first, and then after that you pay income taxes on the remaining. So you're looking at like 50% plus taxes.
Yeah. So you're better off buying and holding and paying capital gains than mining in most cases then.
Yeah, like I mean, it could definitely. I mean, if you have bought mining equipment and you kind of went 0-0, and it should be fine. So and if you made a profit, it's fine too. Like I think you're still making money. But buying and holding is simpler.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And the users, is there any specific examples of like complexities that you've seen? It's like, okay, like how do we dissect that and how do we deal with that from a Divly perspective? Or you say, well, we can serve like 95% of the use cases, but this 5% you're kind of out of luck, or you need to just find a way to do it. And for that 5%, how do those users actually go about it? Because that's then kind of like you're on your own and you need to negotiate with Skatteverket, or what does that end up looking like?
Yeah. So so I mean, like most people is pretty simple, but yeah, when it comes to the more complex cases, like maybe when you use like 20 different wallets, you've done all the weirdest stuff you can think of in the DeFi space and everything, right? And you're sitting there, you have 1,000 transactions, and you just like, I don't even know how to like assemble this stuff, right? Like I can't even get like exports of this, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's obviously when even Divly can't really help you, because we have to have all the information, every transaction you ever done to do it correctly. And so for those users, I mean, there's a few ways you can go. Like one is you do get a tax lawyer to help you out. They are expensive. So ones I know of, usually cost between 1,600 and 3,800 crowns per hour to do the work, and
they'll get a cheap one, I suppose.
And it's all manual work, right? Excel and probably and stuff. So it's going to take them a lot of hours to do as well. So I mean that's why Divly is great, because it's cost effective. But if you don't go down that route because it's too expensive, right? Well, but then what you can do is when you do declaration as good as you can, with the best intentions, and you can contact Skatteverket as well. So you can like write to Skatteverket support, say, hey, I had this type of transaction. How should I declare it? And then also like good to, when you actually do the declaration in so we call övriga upplysningar. So it's section 17 in the inkomstdeklarationen. You can actually write like, hey, I've actually done, I've calculated my taxes in this way for this type of transaction, just to make it very transparent. If you do that, which is called an öppet yttrande, then they can't really hold it against you, because you have been transparent with what you've done. So that's a very, very good thing to do with crypto, I think, especially in the more innovative types of transactions, including as well NFTs. I think it's also good to do that, to kind of protect yourself and just show that you've been transparent. You try to do the best of your abilities. I think then you should be fine.
Can you talk about NFTs specifically? What is the complexity there?
Yes. So I mean, if you've just been buying and selling NFTs, so you haven't been like creating as an artist, like, so if you just buy and sell, then it's just like any type of cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So and you declare it in the same way as well. So you have it, you put it in the K4. So if you sell it, essentially. If, however, you've been creating NFTs and selling them, so you're an artist or something else, and you're doing this on a large scale, then it could definitely be considered as income tax. And whether that is as a hobby or once again as a business, that also kind of depends on what's the criteria. That's might be very clear at the moment. So I think that's in those cases you should definitely be maybe talk to Skatteverket or just check with tax lawyer like how you would be classified as.
And what if you did an ICO, which is also kind of creating value in that sense? How has that been viewed?
I actually have never had a customer ever come in and said, I've done an ICO. So
they're probably not in Sweden.
Yeah, exactly. So never had to really think about that, to be honest. Like if you actually create your own coin.
And you said and on the mining business, just to come back to that, you said there was a private and it's the company. So what if you're a company? Are you also then helping companies in any way with Divly, or is it only private individuals?
So right now it's in private individuals. However, we will be building a business version in summer. So after tax season basically comes to an end, we will be.
Got some time. Got some time.
Yeah. Right now it's way too busy, but then we will be actually solving that problem as well. Because right now it is hard to find accountants that actually understand how crypto should be, treated in the books.
Yep.
You might have had the same problem. I'm not sure.
Sure. I mean, it's like a lot of education, right? Like with everything, and so you start with smart accountants, and then they need to embrace crypto taxation and accounting, which is a thing of its own.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we'll be. I mean, in essence, right? It will be the same as Divly is now. You import your transactions through all the different methods, the wallets and exchanges that we have.
Yeah.
And then instead of having labels like how you have for private individuals, we basically have account plan that's kind of mimics how companies do their accounting essentially. And then the export would be in Sweden Safello, which is used for your accounting software, or direct integrations to Fortnox or Visma, or as such. And then we can handle your mining and think pretty well with that, and all the transactions that the company would do, including selling your digital goods or whatever you're selling for crypto as well, as if you're using payments. So this is definitely something we'll be doing soon.
So after summer is what you're saying, or hoping.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have a beta up during summer, and we have quite a few companies that have come to us, with this problem. So we'll definitely be testing it out with them and building up based on our feedback.
Yeah. And geographically, is your main target or market today Sweden, or other markets where you're seeing a lot of uptake in the adoption?
Yeah, so our main market has been Sweden since we started here, but we have now in the last 2 months released support for Norway, Denmark, Finland. We also have the Netherlands. So we do have exactly. Which is a lot nicer system on taxation with crypto. Way easier. Very different.
Can you describe the difference, just for people who are curious about this kind of geographical difference that might exist?
Sure. So in the Netherlands, you have something called the wealth tax. So you would look at, what are all my crypto holdings worth? Midnight on the 31st of December, if you're going over to the 1st of January there, and you just have one big number, and you just put that in your declaration and belasting it, I think it's called, right?
Yeah, belasting.
Belasting.
You got it right. You got it right.
And that's really it. Apart from if you had maybe gift tax or something like that. So it's very simple. It's not transaction based. It's just like what were you holding in that one day.
But gift tax is interesting, right? In Sweden, I guess you have no gift tax. In most other countries, you do. Is that applicable to crypto as well? So you could just gift crypto at no problem?
It's the same, kind of like any asset, right? Works. So you can give crypto. So if you do give crypto to someone, also make sure to maybe give a receipts of a crypto, because then you can use that as their on cost of their cost basis, right? And their purchase price when actually selling in the future, which decreases their taxes. So it's definitely tax free to give crypto. Yeah.
And the same applies for donations then, right? That is a form of gifting.
Sorry.
That same applies for donations then, because that's a form of gifting.
For other nations.
Donations.
Oh, donations. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So for people going to safello.com/donate, that will be.
Yeah, exactly. So that is tax-free for it. I mean, even in some countries, it's tax deductible. Unfortunately, for crypto, it's not tax deductible.
Okay.
I think it has to be in the form of money.
But that's interesting between then the Netherlands and Sweden. And like, how do you guys look at it? Or like, do you have a conversation with Skatteverket about this and saying also, okay, hey, why don't you just make it simpler? Because of course we say, I know maybe that's not in your interest as a business, of course, but it is kind of like, why not make it simpler, right? Because then they have been pretty open about that. They only had 3,000 people reporting crypto taxes, where of course, like, we as a platform have like 250,000 users on our platform. So isn't then the end? And I guess, I hope, well, we'll see this year. Obviously, we felt as a platform we had to do something, and we have Divly as a main integration. We also have other partners like Coinly and that are doing similar services. So people have choice on how to do it and which platform they want to pick. But then that will hopefully work with conversion. But at the same time, it's still maybe this fear of, well, I've done this and I don't know if this is right, and I end up seeing a tax case of Linus Dunker that has been, going bankrupt, or I guess he got out of it maybe. But do you have conversations directly with Skatteverket about these rules?
So far we've had contacts we can ask questions about taxation, but we haven't had good discussions yet about it, which I would really love to have, because I think there are certain specifics in a taxation for crypto that is making it very hard for users even to do it right. And I think it's in everyone's best interest to apply more common sense to some of these areas, so that there are more taxes that are being paid. That's good for society. There is less stress on the users as well, that they have to pay crypto taxes, and it takes less work for them to do as well. I think that's very beneficial for society as a whole.
So with the VAT, it went to the European Court of Justice. Do you see any other kind of unification of tax legislation across Europe, or something that's on the horizon there?
Like across Europe, like, I don't know, to be honest. I'm not enough. I don't have enough political understanding at that level at the moment.
All right. Well, let's start in Sweden then. We'll get around the table with Skatteverket.
I mean, there are things that I hope will be easier. One is specifically for lending. For example, right now, if you send crypto to something like BlockFi, right, that is seen as a centralized platform that has ownership of your crypto, because they can lend it out to different people, which means you have to essentially, when doing that, it's seen as a disposal event. So like, you're selling your crypto when you're sending it to like BlockFi or Next or Celsius. And then anytime you do a trade and stuff, you have to always like calculate your food run, so like your claims and different things essentially. And then when you send out crypto, you have to value all your crypto in the platform essentially, and look at like, how does that change for the crypto you send out, which is just incredibly complex for what it is. So I think something like, I haven't seen this in any other country yet, like lending, that it has to be seen as a disposal event. So I think that's very frustrating for users.
Okay, maybe they're listening in. Sometimes we have people with Skatteverket listening to this fellow show, so hopefully. So we talked about mining, we talked about the capital gain, and it being 30% on when you sell cryptocurrency effectively. But then the staking taxation. I guess you talked now about lending and borrowing, but staking particularly.
So Skatteverket actually came out with basically a paper on website saying that, explaining how they wanted to treat staking for Ethereum 2.0.
Okay.
Which gives a very good kind of ground to understand how that's taxed. And I think that's actually quite good. So essentially, you aren't, the only thing you're taxed on at the moment as it is the staking rewards. So you can send your Ether to this kind of getting Ethereum 2.0 into your staking Kali validator. And then the staking rewards are treated as interest, essentially exactly the same as any other interest, which you declare in 7.2 in your in Skatteverket then. So I think staking right now is actually quite simple, assuming that we can, say that ETH 2.0 is how will be applied to all our kind of staking kind of algorithms.
What is the percentage that you have to pay on that interest?
30%. So
Also 30. So it's the same kind of capital gain approach to then only the interest in that case.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And that you guys have automated as well then or the calculation.
No, definitely exactly. So that we've automated. So I mean that's probably one of the best things about using a crypto tax calculator is the conversions of prices as well. So we have thousands of cryptocurrency like price time series in our database. So we do always conversions to the Swedish crown and local currency essentially.
Is there an error rate in the calculations with certain things, or is it like no, it's 100%?
I mean, there are if you take like really like volatile coins where 1 o'clock it's worth 10 crowns, and then 2 o'clock is worth 150 crowns, and then 3 o'clock is worth 70 crowns.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have like minute data or like hourly data even for cryptocurrencies, so there will be issues in those really volatile days for some like really volatile cryptocurrencies.
Yeah,
but we do also have like an option where you can actually change that in each transaction. So if you do those done, you can adjust that in Divly there.
So then you could calculate yourself, because that's an interesting thing, right? It's like, okay, when did I buy it? Because in a smart contract, if you do it in a decentralized exchange, you would see it in a smart contract when it was executed, I suppose. And in a centralized platform, you would also see a timestamp. So would they and I guess the granularity of the data, that's a bit the problem of the market data, that you wouldn't be able to automate that timestamp then for that volatile coin and what it was exactly at that moment, but you then take a more like a day-by-day pricing approach.
Exactly. It's also like, the price might be different between exchanges. So that coin might be having one price on exchange A and then have a different price at the same time exchange B.
Yeah.
And that could be quite different as well sometimes.
But then do you take, like say I upload my transactions from Bitstamp, do you then automatically take the Bitstamp pricing, or do you then have a market average pricing that is actually the reference price for the taxation calculation?
So we basically use pricing APIs, so like CoinGecko and different ones that have this and have all these things essentially to do average it out. Yeah.
All right. I have one more question, and then we can go into a demo, because seeing is believing, I guess. Sure. What if we've seen El Salvador legal tender changing, and then of course you have jurisdictions like Portugal that have very changed the taxation landscape, but particularly like legal tender. What implications do you think it would have? Is, let's say, Sweden makes cryptocurrency legal tender for like taxation, the way you guys see it and approach it?
I have absolutely no idea, to be honest. So.
Okay. Well, that was a lame question then.
Sorry.
All right. We'll follow up on that one.
I don't like it's because I think tax authorities around the world are realizing that there's a lot of money now being able to kind of be generated from crypto activities, right? So I do think the ones that are taxing this and have frameworks around it, they're not going to change at least anytime soon. And and more further as well, like I think they're getting more like serious about following up and finding and tracking kind of crypto to as well. So we've seen in other countries like Australia, where we've basically sent 300,000 letters out last year to people saying, we know you're on crypto, so you better pay taxes, right?
Interesting.
And we've seen, the Biden.
So do you know how they got that information? How they were able to, did they do subpoenas on some of the exchanges there in
Probably,
Australia?
Yeah. I really think they do, definitely. And I mean, if you're looking at like in the US, right, the IRS, they said like right now they estimate we're losing $600 billion in tax revenue because of unreported taxes in crypto. And we're saying that in the next 10 years, we're estimating that'll be $7 trillion if they don't do anything about it. So I mean, they're really cracking down on these things, and I think it's getting a lot more serious.
Which is the worst jurisdiction in the world to? I do have follow-on questions. What's the worst jurisdiction in the world to be trading crypto in or owning cryptocurrency?
I should really give a question to my international expansion manager, Yuri. He knows a lot more about me about different countries. Okay. But I mean, I think it's pretty similar, like across a lot of countries, like in all the Nordics countries, like US as well, like Australia, like they're all fairly high taxation. I think India's pretty tough now. We're going to come up with new ones as well.
Are you again looking at those jurisdictions as like, okay, but here it's tough, so here we have a market to go for?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, that's really where we can create the best value is in the tougher countries. So
Yeah.
that's definitely the ones we focus on. So we were planning to enter 10 plus countries in the coming year with Divly to do this for as well.
Super interesting. All right, let's get to a demo.
Sure.
Show us what the integration with Safello looks like. Yeah, I think you can share the screen.
Perfect. Yeah. So this is this is a video. This is the Divly website. So on Divly, you can click get started, and you will be able to create an email or create an account using your email. In Divly, we only store your email address. We actually don't store any personal information, anything that's we found that's pretty important for a lot of our customers who like that. Then you choose the country you pay taxes in, and you choose the local currency, and then basically you will be set to go. So this is a wallets page in Divly. This is where you can add different wallets, so you can have as many as you want. So if you're using Safello to buy or sell into SEK, and you maybe use Binance or use Ledger wallets, or you want to MetaMask, you want to fetch up from blockchain, you can find them here. And to find Safello, you need to type in Safello. You click on that, and then you click on this button, Connect Safello. And really, there's two ways to do it. There's automatic import, which is a very smooth way we built now with you guys to do it, or you can actually download a CSV from Safello and use a file import as well. So it's your choice if you want to use a CSV or if you want to just use this very quick version. And with a quick version, I mean, you log in with bank ID, so you authorize Divly to fetch transactions. We only store your transaction data, and then all your transactions will pop up into Divly here. So this is the transaction page. I mean, you can do a lot of things here. You can edit transactions. You can compare transactions between different exchanges. You can label them. You can do mining or filter, and you can really edit or manipulate do whatever you want with transactions here. But if you only use Safello, it's actually very easy. I mean, once you've loaded it in, you can almost directly go to the tax report page, and you click on this button called Tax Report to download your tax report for Sweden.
Cool.
You also see a nice summary here of if you made any profits or losses for each currency, and you can actually also change by year. So they really actually allow you, if you pay for the tax for 2021, you get all the previous years for free as well. So if you want to do what you call a square in Sweden, you want to take care of previous years, you can also do that using Divly.
So and that means that if you forgot to do it, or you didn't do it, or you didn't realize you had to do it, and then in that line when you declare it, you wouldn't be necessarily punished for that if you report for the previous years, or can they still say, well, you should have, and that's a problem?
So if Skatteverket hasn't investigated you at this point, and they don't know about you should have been paying tax on crypto in previous years, and then yes, if you do forget to say you're doing it with your own kind of initiative, then you won't be punished for doing that. So you'll actually be protecting yourself in one way. So that's a very smart thing to do. If you didn't know you had to do taxes before, you can go and correct that for previous years without any penalty at all.
And pro tip: just use Safello, because then it's simple.
That's simple, yeah. So if you only start using Safello, like the integration is so slick, right? I mean, I think.
Yeah, you guys did an amazing job. It looks great.
Thank you. Yeah, but I feel like that with the bank ID and everything, it's so smooth, right? I mean, there's no other exchange that's so simple to do to import your transactions with.
Well, great to hear that. I mean, that is the point, right? It's like, yeah. But at the same time, we realize that a lot of people want to do all these other things that are, more esoteric. But it is interesting to understand that it is creating these other issues, of course. But it's and you do have the different tools. And you have the international platforms and all the other things as well in the platform. So if you do it, I guess you get pretty far, depending on how crazy you go about it. Is there anything else you'd like to show here in terms of?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, once you've done a tax report, it will be localized for your country. So in Safello, it will be Sweden if you're Swedish.
Okay.
So we've done the K4. We thought through everything in regards to each local country very, and that's kind of like one of the things Divly we try to specialize in to do really well for your country. But also with Safello you even get a 30% discount, which is another very nice handy thing.
Indeed.
So
That's the cute little bird.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is there a reason for that bird? What is the name Divly? Where does it come from?
Great question. So really, is my girlfriend, right? She had bought this domain called Divly.com a while ago. Just never used it, and I was like, "Wow, that's a pretty good name." Like it doesn't mean anything, but it's it's a short, nice girl. So
what did she want to use it for?
I can't remember. I mean, she's pretty spontaneous sometimes in her purchasing decisions. So she was, that's a good one to have. It became a good one to have a few years later.
Nice.
And essentially the bird, I mean, I just really, want to have some cute like a mascot. We felt like all the different tax kind of calculators was very serious, very stringent. We wanted to differentiate ourselves a bit. And I think in crypto, especially, it's fine to have a bit of a personality as well, and still be very serious. So we thought it was fun.
I've been pitching it for Safello. We'll get there because we want the safe fellow, and we're gonna make the safe fellow, and we're gonna have the fellowship of Safello. But we'll get there. But it's great.
Fellowship of Safello.
Of course, yeah.
I can do some great content with that. Wow.
Yeah. I should say anything, but anyway, the bird will do for now. We'll go with the Divly bird.
Cool.
Anything else? Anything else that people should know about taxation or about Divly that you want to highlight?
I mean, I think if you do have further questions, we do have great guides on our page divly.com. So I would suggest looking at those guides. We have a few of them have been translated to both the local language and English, and they go really into detail on all those specifics. Also, I mean, if you have other questions, you can contact Skatteverket direct. You can contact them anonymously if you want. And we're also in our support chat. If you have specific questions, we can also usually help you out as well on divly.com. So
cool.
That's my suggestions. Yeah.
Awesome. Maybe we could just quickly show where people can find it on the Safello page as well, Matt, just to show again where people can find it. Let's see. I think he's pulling it up. There we go. So this is the landing page. You go to products and then you click on taxes. I guess in Sweden it is. Carl, help me out.
Yeah.
Maybe we can show the Swedish page as well as most of the Swedes will likely here. This is so it's the producten and then declarera, and then you'll just find the integration there. Are there any questions that we have from the audience? What are the crypto taxes? What are the taxes to sell crypto? I think we already answered that. So I think that's it then for today. Thanks so much, Carl, for joining and talking us through like the taxation landscape in Sweden and abroad. And it's an amazing integration you guys did, and I hope it will take off for both of us, but also for the end users. And you know what, for Skatteverket as well. They need some more money. Why not? That's it for today. Thanks, everybody. This was episode 19 of the Safello Show. See you probably next week.
Thank you very much.
Bye.